Hacemos is really excited to kick off our Latino Talk series, where we'll be having Latino guest speakers discussing various topics that affect our community each week throughout the month. Throughout the series, we want members to really get engaged and ask questions. Feel free to ask via the chat box, or you can raise your hand. These are the opportunity to just, where these are fireside chats. The people that we've invited have opened themselves to be able to just have a conversation with them. So please, we encourage you to make this engaging and fun, and just feel free to ask questions and just get as engaged as possible. Today, we are going to hear an inspirational story of one of our colleagues, AVP Willard Tressel, and artist-songwriter Debbie Nova. But first, I want to introduce our moderator, Alberto B. Mendoza. He is the executive of the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, who have over 3,000 members. He is the founding publisher of Palabra, a new media outlet that hires freelance journalists to tell stories about the Latino community. And he's also a fellow at Media Transformation Challenge at Poynter Institute, one of the world's most influential schools for journalists. So Alberto, I'm going to pass it over to you. On, Alberto. Okay, give me 1 second. Willard, I'm going to go ahead and, just pass it over to you so you can start. I know I see that you're on. So if you want to go ahead and just start, just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself. Tell us your story. I will work on getting in contact with Alberto.
Okay, all right. Well, I run on DirecTV, which is, oh, there's Alberto.
There you are.
There he is.
Alberto.
Let's go back to Alberto.
You can.
There we go. Alberto, I just did your introduction, so you just came on right on time.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and my apologies for coming on a little bit late. It is a treat to be here with you guys on the celebration of Latino Heritage Month and this kickoff. And we have an amazing superstar amongst us, actually several. And it's an opportunity here that we have to have a dialogue about what Hispanic heritage means to all of us. And Willard, let's start with you. What does it mean to you, and why do you think it's an important celebration?
Well, I think Latinos come in all different flavors, really. And, my story is my mom's from Guatemala. So she married a North American, came to the United States, and soon thereafter, I was born. I guess you can say I'm an anchor baby of sorts. But, I think my my cultural heritage has been infused in everything that I've done. In content, whether it's from my UCLA student programming days to all my entertainment experiences. And so I think it's just infused in everything that I do. And I did get into Spanish language television, early on. I don't know if you want to jump into that, but I went to UCLA, and then I graduated, and there was a writer's strike, so there were no jobs to be had within in the entertainment industry. The only thing that was going was game shows. Got a job there. Went to ABC after that, and then I got a job on a show called Star Search. And Star Search was sort of the American Idol of its time. Great stars. I have to say that we had bigger stars than American Idol ever had. Backstreet Boys, Billy Porter, Alanis Morissette, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and it goes on and on. We had comedy category, Dave Chappelle, Conan, Adam Sandler, many more. And we did have a spokesmodel category. The first spokesmodel was Sharon Stone. There's a little
there
bit.
You go. Hey, Willard, so were you intentional about how you could use your identity as Latino or a mix in your work, or did it just happen kind of, you look at the opportunities and then just went with it?
It kind of just, like I said, it infused everything. But then an opportunity arose. So I was at Star Search. I was working on casting. I was doing all sorts of things, and they did a deal to produce the Spanish language version of the the show. Buscando Estrellas con Budweiser, sponsored by Budweiser, obviously, for Univision. And so they looked around, they said, well, does anyone speak any Spanish? And I timidly raised my hand and I said, well, I can speak some Spanish. They go, you're the producer. So that created an opportunity for me. And it was a lot of fun. Again, traveled all across the United States and produced this show for Univision. And we had our first host was Fernando Allende, and then we switched to Mexican pop singer Mijares. So did that, and then at the same time, Sam Riddle and we produced a series for Telemundo, which was unheard of at the time to do a show both for Univision and for Telemundo, because there was a lot of bad blood between. If you worked for one, you couldn't work for the other. It was pretty bad. So we did a series called Ritmo Internacional, and it was a music-driven series. And we had artists like Mark Anthony, Olga Tañón, La India, Carlos Vives, Tito Puente, Celia Cruz. It was, it was star-studded. It was great. The only problem was they put us up against a little show on Saturday night called Sábado Gigante. We were slaughtered in the ratings. But it was
especially on Saturdays, right?
There's no way we were going to win. So, but it was a good experience. And I have to say, the executive in charge was a young executive, by the name of Cynthia Hudson. And Cynthia Hudson is now the president of CNN in Espanol.
Yes.
We have been friends ever since. She's still a good friend. We work on things together to this day. So that was a great experience.
Yeah, Cynthia is one of our longtime members and another leader like you. So for the young Latinos that are watching and are thinking about how do we follow in those footsteps, what are some key advice points that you can give that people really need to consider? And especially because you don't really think about how entertainment can be something that could be at the core of a career, yet you've been able to manage that, and without like AT&T and HBO Max, there really is that opportunity to make a career of it. So what would you say to those people that are interested in that?
Well, I think you just have to have a passion, a purpose for entertainment. That's something I always wanted to be involved in. I don't know, I guess it goes way back to my cultural heritage. My grandfather in Guatemala owned a movie theater. And so my mother's love for entertainment got passed on to me, and that's what I wanted to do. So I've always pursued that. After those production experiences, I went to go work internationally with Disney, and I worked on television shows from throughout the world. But I did pitch Walt Disney World, Pleasure Island, an idea about doing something called Latin Rhythm Nights, and I, after all my experience with all that music stuff, I said, this is a great market. And so I pitched this this ticketed venue for this thing I called Latin Rhythm Nights. And I pitched it, and the guy at Walt Disney World said, well, this thing ain't gonna work. He goes, Hispanics they don't spend any money. They're not gonna pay the ticketed event, and then they're not gonna spend any money once they get on the island. So no, we're not gonna do it. Well, I got pissed off. So I went to a research person, a Colombian woman who worked with us internationally, and we put together this buttoned-down Disney deck, which had a lot of brand information, brand loyalty, spending among the Hispanic community, and it all showed they are a great consumer. So we pitched again, and they agreed to do it. And Latin Rhythm Nights became the #1 ticketed event, most profitable event Pleasure Island ever had, and we, shut down the island every year we did it. Awesome. So it was a great success.
Well, I mean, we're consistently, I think, underestimated as Latinos, and I think especially our buying power and our interest in community Tell us a little bit about also how tiny audience really is a core component of some of the work that you guys are managing that's really become so popular.
Yeah, well, let me tell you a little bit about Tiny Audience. It's a series of music specials taped in front of a live audience, a tiny audience, so it's very intimate,
Yeah.
featuring top Latin musical acts who reveal a personal secret, and then they perform songs that are especially meaningful to them. The list of artists are fantastic. We've got, well, Debbie Nova. I hope she's going to be on pretty soon.
Yeah.
Juanes, Sebastian Yatra, Piso 21, Fonseca, Diego Torres, and many more. 14 hours of content. And, this is really a partnership, a synergy partnership that made this a reality for us. Um, so of course, AT&T acquired DirecTV, AT&T acquires Warner Media. And so I reach out to my colleague over at HBO Latino, Leslie Cohen. And so we begin to share different things that we're doing. And at some point, she comes back and says, hey, we're doing this thing called a tiny audience. The producers want to get distribution in Latin America. And are you interested? Well, I looked at the talent list. I see Debbie Nova's on the line now, and and I think it's a wonderful list of talent. I also look at their social media following, the artists, and I thought it was a great opportunity for us to get involved with HBO Latino to bring this content across the Americas, all the way from North America, all the way to Argentina. And so we did ask for a couple little changes in that we wanted to add a little bit more content, which they did. And we asked them to post it in 4K as well, so we could put it on our 4K channel. So our a tiny audience is a little bit different from the US version. I think it's bigger, better, and more definition. But it's been, and the producers, let me just give a shout out, and Debbie knows them, Maurice Kaiser and Cristiana Becerra. So it's been a great experience, and the ratings linear wise have been terrific, and on video on demand, top 10 in the time period that we've been airing it. And I'll say Debbie's episode out of the 14 hours was number 4. So Debbie, you're very popular.
That's great.
That's amazing.
We should throw it to Debbie and I'd love to hear, well, she can talk a little bit about this, but her secret was so charming, what you started out with on the show. Very, very charming.
Hi, Debbie. Welcome. And yes, please. Actually, let's start with you telling us a little bit about what Hispanic heritage means to you, and let's jump into that little story as well.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Hold on.
Willard, there you go. We see her. Hi, Debbie.
Hi. Need to.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
and we can see
No?
you.
Okay, good. You can see me, but you can't hear me.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry, this is the first time I'm calling you guys through the phone, and I'm seeing you through the screen, so I just had to multitask. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So let's start off with a little bit of telling us what does Hispanic heritage mean to you, and a little bit about your background, and then also dive into your experience with Tiny Audience, which you want to hear about as well.
Well, it's I'm Costa Rican. I've lived in the U.S. for a long time now, and as a Latina artist, Hispanic Heritage Month has always been a month that brings me really out of the ordinary activities as an artist that I don't get to do any other time of the year, like this one, which allows me to connect with other Latinos and Latinas in the entertainment business, actors, actresses, artists, people in the communication world. And And so whenever I think of the Hispanic Heritage Month, I know there's going to be surprises, and I know there's going to be a lot of connection. And it just reminds me how important it is to celebrate our cultural heritage, which I think is so important in a world that more and more becomes, you know, globalized. Like, I think it's so important to cherish each other's, like, what makes us special in our cultural heritage. So I love Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's an honor to represent this culture and you know, and celebrate it.
Wow. Well, another famous Costa Rican is Chavela Vargas, of course.
Yeah, she's right there. I don't know.
There you go.
Her,
yeah.
but that's her.
I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think she's Mexican, although she spent most of her career in Mexico. So tell us a little bit about your experience with a tiny audience and the story that Willard kind of referred to, the little secret.
So my little secret was how my name was born. My artist name, Debbie Nova, because my real name is Polish, which I'm not gonna bore you guys with why why my name is Polish. But when I got to the U.S., I started what we call gigging in our lingo. I started gigging in I don't know, bar mitzvahs, weddings, quinceañeras, and I went to Kinko's back in the day to get my business cards, you know, my singer cards. And I asked them to write my full Polish name, which is Deora Nowalski. And the guy at Kinko's was like, that doesn't sound like a Latin, you know, singer artist name. And so he baptized me as Debbie Nova. That was the story, and nobody knows that. So that's the beauty of a show like A Tiny Audience, which allows us as artists to say these kinds of stories and connect them through the music with our audience. So I really, really enjoyed the experience, and it was just very refreshing for me. Yeah.
Beautiful. Willard, and I'm curious to talk to you both about this, in part because we are living in such a complicated time right now. And entertainment has really been one of those key components that keeps us together, especially around COVID, especially how we're dealing with race tensions right now. How has entertainment really played a role in healing us and keeping us together, especially as Latinos? Can you share what that experience has been like?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of A Tiny Audience, it came at a really good time for our subscribers, in that you know, we were able to listen, I'm working in a basement. I've been in here for 6 months. So I think a lot of people miss going out and enjoying their favorite artists like Debbie. And so A Tiny Audience has been something that they can watch. And I think this is why it's rated and so well linear and on VOD, because it's a connection with a better time, with possibly what they are nostalgic about and about what is to come, and that we will get back to normal at some point. So there's a lot of comfort in the performances that the Debbie Novas of the world can give us. So music has always been a part of on DirecTV, and the content that we have, the music stuff, the crowd experiential stuff has been resonating with our subscribers.
Well, and you've been in this industry for such a long time. Did you think even 20 years ago that we would be in this position where like a tiny audience and AT&T really would be behind supporting these voices and really kind of connecting more with the Latino community? Could you have anticipated that?
Well, listen, as I don't know if Debbie heard, but I was producing that kind of content with the likes of, you know, the Mark Anthonys and the Olga Tañons and all that of the world way back when. Yeah. So I always believed in that, and I think performance is key to a great entertainment experience.
And Debbie,
Alberto, one of the things I wanted to add is that I think during this COVID time, it's really cool to be able to watch something here in the United States and be able to call your family down in Latin America and tell them to watch the same show and then be able to have a conversation about it. I think that's something that's very rare that AT&T is giving the opportunity to do. So for all of you Hacemos members that have not gotten a chance to see it, now is your time. Call your family. Your family in Latin America probably already saw it, but definitely to be able to make that connection, have that conversation. I think a lot of people are doing that now. You know, there's watch parties and things like that.
Yeah,
Well,
I think that
let me just jump in there, Alberto, real quick. You know, to that point, during this time, when a tiny audience was launched in Latin America, we had to take down our Venezuela signal, which was painful for all of us.
Sure.
But we were caught between a rock and a hard place, between the Maduro government and the Trump administration. So we shut it down. So unfortunately, the subscribers in Venezuela weren't able to see a tiny audience. So we're trying to remedy that. And what we've done is another provider has come in to take over the pay TV business there, but On Direct TV is still part of it. So we want them to catch up. So we're going to do a weekend marathon of a tiny audience of 48 hours nonstop of all that great content. So our friends and our subscribers in Venezuela can enjoy the great music of Debbie's and others. And then Debbie, I have to say that your stories of the music that you selected, and again, part of a tiny audience is selection of music that's important to them. And so Debbie, can you tell us a little bit about the music that you chose?
Yeah, the three songs are very special to me. The first song I chose was a song I did with Franco De Vita, who happens to be an amazing, and I'm sure all of you here know him, Venezuelan artist. And that song changed my life. That song was the song that opened up the doors for me in Latin America. So I thought it was very important for me to play that song because it definitely is a before and after. And I played a song that I had never played before, which was a really beautiful opportunity because I recorded this before my new album came out. And I got to play a song that I wrote for my grandmother called Bolero para Lola, which came out months after in my new album. So that was really nice. I got to do the preview in a tiny audience. It's a song about my grandparents essentially, and I think it's the most special song I've gotten to write in my life. So
it's
that was
beautiful
really
song. Beautiful
Yeah.
song.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
And then I sang a song by Bob Marley because Bob Marley is my all-time favorite artist, and my wedding song was a Bob Marley song, and anybody that knows me that, you know. So yeah, I mean, I got to play things that I don't. It's a very unusual set that I don't get to play anywhere else, and I just feel very fortunate that I got that space. And you know what was really, really wonderful is that was the last time I got to play with Dan Warner, and I'll just say it very briefly, but Dan was one of the most loved musicians, producers, arrangers in the Latin music world, and he unfortunately passed away not long after we shot A Tiny Audience. So that was I remember that moment as just one of the most special moments of my career in the last 2 years because I got to perform with them. I got to play these three absolutely meaningful songs, and I feel very grateful about that.
Wow. So sorry to hear that. That's right. What would you say are messages that you want young Latinas to hear from you? Especially because, you know, we do lack enough role models as Latinos, especially role models that are thriving in the United States. And I'm curious, who were your role models, and what would you say to these kids that are seeing you as a role model in our community?
You know, I always think about me growing up as a woman, as a Latina woman, singer-songwriter in Costa Rica with the dream of coming to America to make a career out of this. And all my role models, musicians, singers, songwriters at the time were Anglo. Like I listened to Fiona Apple and Sheryl Crow, and I mean, there were female singer-songwriters, but it not like right now. Right now, we as women have a lot of women to look up to in our peers, you know, and I feel really good about that, because I feel there's a generation of little girls that are sitting on their piano or grabbing a guitar that have a reference, you know, they have somebody to look up to, and
they can see it.
They can see it, you know, and there's a Natalia Lafourcade, and there's a Francisca Valenzuela and Amon Laferte, and, you know, and Jimena Sariñana, and there's just so many that are doing these very interesting careers, you know, that back in the day, it was like hard to picture Latina Fiona Apple or Alicia Keys, you know, like, for me, it's inspiring the young generation to be who they want to be and embrace that, embrace who they are, embrace it fully, with all our differences, you know, we're so beautiful, each of us. And so for me, that's the magic of music, is like showing people that you can be whoever you want to be.
Thank you. Willard, you and I definitely have a background in politics that have kind of connected in different parts of our backgrounds. But I'm curious to hear from both of you. How do you keep the politics out of it, or do you?
Well, running a channel, I have to say that I don't. I keep politics into it, and we've acquired quite a few documentaries that are issue oriented, and we try to keep that top of mind. I've been able to acquire content from, say, Frontline, PBS, and air that in Latin America, some very hard-hitting documentaries. And in fact, in October, leading up to November 3rd, it's a special date. So we've got the 4-part Hillary documentary, which was aired on Hulu. We've got Kingmaker, which is an interesting documentary about authoritarian government and the legacy of the Marcos regime. We've got Colombia in My Arms, about the peace process. We've got another documentary about Cambridge Analytica and how they mine data for their purposes. So, you know, I feel fortunate that we're able to acquire some content that is issue oriented, makes people think, and we have documentaries about the environment. We have documentaries about all sorts of things that are important to Latin America and to the world in general. So to answer your question, I don't shy away from that. And thankfully, AT&T and DirecTV has been supportive in the kind of content that we curate.
Thank you. Debbie, what about you? I know that's also a little tricky in that you do have so many eyes looking at you, listening to you. Do they expect you to have an opinion or a voice on some of these issues?
I don't know if expectation is, I mean, I think as artists right now in this moment in history we have a responsibility to have a voice, whatever that is. I mean, I don't get very political in my social media, but I do, the things that I'm passionate about the most is women's, you know, like making sure women are visible, like women visibility and empowerment, diversity, you know, inclusion, like, I tend to gravitate towards those things. And whenever I see injustice or I see things that aren't right, I will definitely speak up, and I think it's part of being an artist in 2020. You have to speak up and have a position of whatever that is.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been the executive director for the National Association of Hispanic Journalists for the last 5 years. And we, you know, just even when I started to where we are today in the types of engagement that we're having and the impact that all of this is happening on journalists. And frankly, we're still considered other or an affinity group. And so we've taken the approach that if it's not there, we're going to create it. And recently we launched our own multimedia platform called Palabra, which is a platform that features Latino journalists talking about our community in a way that we are reclaiming our narrative. One of the areas that we know is still something that we need to work on, and it's coming soon, is the lack of Latino journalists that are covering entertainment in the way that there's parity when it comes to mainstream journalism organizations and media outlets that can cover an artist like you. What are some tips that you can give some of these journalists that allow them to really thrive in an area where they can use their Hispanic heritage as a benefit to especially connect with artists that are Hispanic? I'd love to hear from both of you about that.
Well, Dave, you want to start?
Go ahead. I want to think about this a little more.
Well, I think it's just, I think news directors and networks have to have an open mind and offer opportunities to people from across the spectrum and offer diverse voices in. I mean, I think about a host that we found in Nicaragua, and someone shared a video of this guy in Nicaragua. His name was Francisco Caceres, and I just thought he was so talented, and he was doing this show on his own, and then I kept him in mind, and we started this On Cinema show, and dealing with entertainment. And so I said, I want this guy to be our host. So he was our host. So he kept on work. This guy works like crazy. He's so dedicated. And then he got recognized. I sent his resume off to NBC News and others because I believed in him. Then he got a role with working on Telemundo as an entertainment reporter. Now he's doing mainstream work, but it's incremental. Just get that foot in the door and just keep on going. And that's what Francisco did. And I'm so proud of him. We've lost him because he became too big, but that's okay because he's doing what he wants to do. So he's an inspiration.
Yeah, we have journalists who want to do that work, but they don't get that chance in their newsrooms. And so we can't encounter that with sports as well. Journalists that are doing sports that know that they can speak to the players in Spanish, but they just don't get that opportunity to do so. So Palabra is going to have that mechanism for Latinos to really do the work that they want to do besides just what they're assigned to do. Debbie, have you ever had an interview in Spanish with a journalist that it really connected, that was missing when it became an interview that was done in English?
Sorry. I was just going to add one thing to what Willard said, and this is what I was going to say, is taking chances is so important in the entertainment industry. And I've seen it in music for sure. Like I think about a Rosalia, for example, who doesn't sound like anything else that's out there. And if somebody wouldn't have taken that chance on her, like, you know, we would have missed that brilliance. And I think it's the same with journalism, like taking chances, which is what Willard was saying. But to answer your question, which was if I've connected with
if you had an interview with a journalist that was done in Spanish, or just a Latino journalist that there was a connection because of the cultural bond that maybe didn't translate when it was, you know, a white journalist doing the same kind of interview.
For sure. I mean, and not just with journalists, like the minute you know, because I'm a güerita here in Los Angeles, because my eyes are light. So whenever I start speaking in Spanish, it's like a complete world opens up, you know, to another Latino here in the U.S. because it's that bond, you know, and it's the slang and it's the rhythm, and every language has a flow and has a song to it. So absolutely. I mean, I can't think of one in particular, but I've had, hundreds of interviews here in the U.S. with Latino journalists that, you know, the minute we break into the Spanglish is like, we just start to bounce and flow, you know?
Yeah, the vibe is definitely different, right? So I know that I think we have a couple questions coming up, but one last question I
Yeah.
have is what's still missing? Like, what are the things that we need to see in place, both in programming, both into the support of Latino artists, that AT&T is already doing, but also we need to see more of in other networks?
Oh man, there's so much going on in entertainment these days that are offering diverse voices. I think, you know, the OTT, the over the tops, the streamers, you know, they're offering a lot more diverse voices. You see a lot of content that's connecting with audiences from places all over the world, Spain in particular. On DirecTV, we champion content from Spain early on. We were told it was never going to work because of the accent. But, you know, if the story's good, if the acting's good, if the producers are good, it's going to resonate. And I think that's good for viewers. And I think it's democratized in many ways. And I have to correct one thing. Francisco Caceres, he's from Salvador, not Nicaragua. So sorry about that.
Thank you.
And you know, and Alberto, I just want to say thank you to your organization because you know, obviously journalists have been vilified and called the enemy of the state. And you guys are doing something that is very important and getting the truth out. And so, and you guys put your lives on the line. So thank you for that.
I will relay that to our many members, especially when they have to tell those stories on immigration and the separation at the border. I mean, these are stories that are personal, COVID, the economic impact. I mean, we're feeling it, and our members are putting themselves out there like other journalists to tell the story. So thank you. Debbie, what's the last one for you? So what's missing? What do you want to see more of in the future for the support of Hispanic artists like yourself?
For women, I hate to say it, but you know, you see it in the award shows, you see it in the Billboard charts. It's always 80% men, 20% women, and I just don't see why it can't be a 50-50. I mean, there's a lot of women doing really amazing things.
Right.
So for, you know, that would be what I want to see in the future for music in particular. You know, like I think there's a generation of young women, producers, sound engineers, you know, that they need to be heard and spotlighted, and so that's what I would love to see. But I think you know, a tiny audience is a perfect example of the direction in which we're moving.
Great.
Of more content that really shows who we are and the diversity of Latinos, and you know, we're not one note. It's like all these different colors, and so I feel very hopeful about the future in that regard.
Wonderful, beautiful, and I would love to see more companies also making those commitments verbally and coming through, so that they can say 50% of our content will be produced by women, or will be. So I look forward to that. I think, do we have any questions that we wanted to
Yeah, it
bring?
looks like we have a question for the audience. It's probably for Willard. It's asking if it would be nice to bring old Spanish music from the late 80s to the show, kind of like rock en español, anything from Hombres G from Spain to Soda Stereo, Enanitos Verdes from Argentina, Maná, and so on. Can you give us a little preview into, is there going to be another tiny audience? Do you have any information on that?
I have to say some of those folks are dying off, too young. But I'm a big believer in rock en español. I used to co-manage a band with a guy named Tomas Cookman, who was really Debbie may know him, who was the champion of rock en español. He managed Amigos Invisibles and other acts. So I'm a huge fan of that era of music. It's sometimes hard to find some of that content that's in HD, a lot of it's in SD. You know, it's one thing I have to say, there's not enough Spanish language content being produced these days. I mean, there's, you know, the big international acts get some content produced, but it's all changed because the record labels used to underwrite a lot of that production, and they don't do that anymore.
Right.
So they're really focusing on the huge acts, and that's why a tiny audience is important, because you know it's a way to get Spanish language content produced in a very high quality way.
Now, Willard, I hear that you do a mean Elvis Presley impersonation.
Where
I've
did you
been
get
doing
that
my
one?
research.
Oh man, but
And I'm just curious if we could expect a tiny audience special edition of Willard doing Elvis. You know, something to just think about in the future.
unless Debbie wants to do a duet or something with me.
All right, there you go.
For sure. For sure. I've always wanted to do a duet with Elvis. So.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we have another question.
Actually, we just aired 2 Elvis specials in Latin America, and the ratings were fantastic. The Aloha from Hawaii and his '68 special, legendary.
Actually, I just still love those movies, frankly.
Yeah.
Monica,
Yes,
do we have another question?
Yeah, another question from the audience. It seems that in the entertainment industry, much like others, we still need the Anglo blessing to be seen at a mass level. So recently, with the injustice in the Black community, we now have Black content. Netflix and Amazon now predominantly feature under a Black category. Do we have a massive Latino social disruption for Latino content to be acknowledged, or is there an alternative to accelerate our content exposure? Great question.
Well, I'll jump in there. I think that the Latino public, the audience needs to be heard and need to come together. I mean, listen, Alberto, we've talked about working in politics. I worked for Artoras, East LA, and you know, it's about getting out the vote. It's about being heard, and we've got to get serious about that and make ourselves heard. But I think who wrote that? Rafael has a good point that we need to probably make a little bit more noise.
We need to vote, and of course, especially with the census now, we need to be counted. And that I can't stress is so important. You know, I actually started a Latinx LGBTQ online organization about 7 years ago in reaction to the fact that we're not included in stories. And, you know, coming out is still not the easiest thing for most Latino families. And we still deal with families rejecting their kids and kids really committing suicide. So I don't know how much disruption does have to happen, but I personally believe that you don't have to wait for terrible things to happen to take action. And I think, you know, do what you can. I always try to focus on do what I can, and because there's always going to be more that you can't do, and focus on the storytelling that can be told. And mine was in reaction to the It Gets Better campaign that was out there years ago that didn't feature many Latino voices, or much less voices in Spanish. And so for us, telling our stories, again, we just depend on others to advocate on our behalf, because there's not a lot of people that want to share power. And so I think those are opportunities to kind of move things forward.
Yeah, there's one more thing I probably should bring up, something that we do in Latin America to give voice to aspiring filmmakers. For 8 years, we've been doing a film scholarship program. And right now it's called Fasuni. It was called DirecTV Cinema Plus Becas. But Sandro Mesquita, who was head of our corporate social responsibility, came to me years ago and said, hey, I'd like to do something on the entertainment front, the film front. And you know, being a guy from Star Search and Buscando Estrellas con Budweiser and all this, I like to do these sort of uplifting contests. So we did this scholarship program. And so 8 years later, we have 800 universities participating. We've seen 2,800 films.
Beautiful.
We've had 58 country winners, and each country winner, their school gets a matching prize. And then we've had 19 Scholarship winners go to USC School of Cinematic Arts. Amazing program, the Warner Brothers program. It just happened to be. So that's something that we're very proud of, and we hope that we're giving voice to all sorts of great creative voices in Latin America.
I love that. And NHJ also donates about $200,000 to scholarships for young emerging journalists as well. So that is so important. Debbie, do you have people that are reaching out to you and sending you their demo videos or their sizzle reels just so that you can help them, maybe guide them or discover them?
Yeah, and my mission is we need more artists from Costa Rica in the map. I know we're a small country, but there's so much talent over there, and for some reason it's hard for Central Americans to come out to the world. I don't know if it's the industry over there, how it works, but yes, absolutely. There are a few young artists that I have my eye on in my country that I'd love to eventually do a collaboration with them, and
well, I think Willard is your guy then. Willard can kind of create the magic with Buscando Estrellas, Costa Rica, maybe something there.
Okay.
I love finding talent.
I love that. But yeah, that's something I definitely want to, it's my mission. Yeah, to put Costa Rica in the map.
Beautiful.
Okay, I do have one story from Star Search about finding someone. So I was on a cross-country trip, and I was holding these open calls, which I would see probably 1,000 acts at each one.
Oh my gosh!
So I was in Memphis, Tennessee, and
were you more like Simon or Paula or Randy? What were you more like?
I was nice. I was the host, the producer, and I'd get up and I'd introduce them, give them 30 seconds, because you can tell if they're going to be good in 5 seconds. Debbie knows that. You can really tell. They have to own that stage. So I'm up there. I introduce this kid who's 11 years old. I go to get ready for the next one, and I hear, wow, this guy can really sing. This guy's good. So I let him sing a full minute and a half. He looks like a little mini George Strait, cowboy hat and pressed shirt and the whole thing. Anyway, we had a junior slot all ready, but we were closing casting. But I called up LA to San Francisco, and I said, listen, this kid is good, and I know we got one slot. Please put him on. Just trust me.
Yeah.
Okay, they said, okay, he's on. Well, that kid turned out to be pretty talented. He didn't win Star Search, but his name is Justin Timberlake. So I took him from them all, put him on the show, and then he went on to the Mickey Mouse Club, and the rest is the rest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think Britney Spears was on Star Search. Sinbad was on Star Search. Rosie O'Donnell. There was a lot of talent back then. Yeah, Usher. That's right. There's a lot of incredible talent, and I think that the beauty is when you're open to see and find talent everywhere, you really can be surrounded by it without actually knowing. So as we close out our chat today and talk about the rest of the month for Hispanic Heritage Month, I want to thank, of course, AT&T for really hosting us. But what are some things that you would like to see for our community, really in the next, especially leading up to the election? What are some things you want to share to our community?
Get out the vote. Everyone needs to express themselves and get out and vote.
Thank you, Debbie.
Absolutely. I would say the same thing. Get out to vote. Yeah.
That is a perfect segue to our next Latino Talks next week, which is going to be talking about the Latino vote. We are going to have LULAC President and CEO Cindy Benavides that's going to be talking about the importance of Latino vote this election season, voter disenfranchisement issues, and just what we can do to get ourselves ready. Hacemos has partnered with the National Voter Registration Day on September 22nd to get out the Latino vote. So it's going to be our big kickoff call for that. Next Monday is going to be the call for that Latino Talk series. Thank you guys so much. Alberto, thank you. Great moderating. I knew a journalist could do it much than I could. Willard, thank you so much. And for everybody here, Willard is our colleague, so definitely open arms, open arms invitation. We love executives that are willing to tell their stories and just be here as a resource for other employees. And Debbie Nova, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. It was really a pleasure. Thank you all for joining, and we're now.
Thank you for hosting us. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good one.
Thank you, everybody. And shout out to Noelle Garcia.
Oh.
Yeah.